Hello and welcome back to the Championship Lowdown podcast. I am once again joined with Chris and we are back to review week 5 of the Championship action. Welcome back, Chris.
Yeah, good to be back. Another international break finally over, and you never know why it impacts the Championship as much as it does, but
Yeah, a long week we've had away, but we're finally back and I think we'll kick it off and we'll go straight into the action. And there is only one place to start with this week and it is with the early kickoff on the Friday, which is Sheffield United 0, Ipswich Town 5, an absolute battering at Portman Road against the Blades. And we've had a lot of news of Sheffield United in the last couple of days because not only did they lose 5-0, but Ruben Sellers was sacked after just 5 games into his tenure at Sheffield United, and Chris Wilder has been reappointed as manager. But before we get into that, we will stick to the game first. 5-0, it was the Jaden Philogene show, Chris, out in a very, very convincing win for Ipswich.
yeah, I think if you had to pick a player of the week of a Championship as well, in the EFL as a whole, it's absolutely going to Jaden Philogene. I think he's above the Championship as a player, really, which surprised me a little, him going to Ipswich, but he'll no doubt, if Ipswich can play like that every week, he'll no doubt be in the Premier League again next season anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it was a ridiculous game of football to watch. The Philogene, I mean, even the goals were like a special level of goal. They were just scoring screamers all over the place. But it was just another disaster for Sheffield United. You know, it's been, I can't imagine they've had a start this bad at this level for a very, very long time. And, you know, it's not what anyone expected. You know, this is a team that you sort of associate nowadays with being at the top end of the table competing for promotion. They were in the playoff final last year, and the parallels between them and Sunderland at the minute are absolutely insane compared to one last-minute goal that changed everything for both teams. But yeah, I mean, we'll sort of speak about the managerial situation. So as I said, Sellers was sacked after just 5 games in charge. I did say in my manager rankings at the start of the season with Elliot that I didn't think he suited Sheffield United. I didn't think it would last very long, and it hasn't. As I said, I didn't understand why they sacked Chris Wilder. And I guess they also realised that 5 games in because they brought him back for the 3rd time as their manager. Is it a bit embarrassing, you think, Chris, for them sort of, you know, they don't really seem to function unless they have Chris Wilder in charge. As much as they try to move on from him, they still can't seem to shake it.
Yeah, it is a bit. I think it's good to realise going back on your mistake, but also from a perspective, it's almost like just going back to an ex after a couple of months away, sort of thing. You look at Ruben Sellers' appointment and 9 wins from 32 in the Championship. It for a team who you would undoubtedly have put as promotion contenders at the start of this season, to appoint a manager like Sellers with a record like that is absurd. I think League One is his ceiling when you look at his League One record compared to the Championship. And I know Hull have had their struggles themselves, but it's just not a record for a manager to take you to the Premier League, Ruben Sellers.
No, and I said it in the preseason predictions and manager videos. I didn't get it. I didn't think it fit someone like Sellers who sort of needs a bit more time to build a little process. And, you know, getting a win now sort of team, you can't really afford to have that time to sort of build something. But I didn't really know what he was trying to build at all because it was just really poor. You know, as a Swansea fan, obviously we beat them and it was so convincing. You know, just, you know, a team that you expect to have a really hard time against. You know, everyone associates going to play Chris Wilder team as, you know, it's a difficult game, it's a hard time to be able to do anything, and it was fairly easy for them in the end. But yeah, I mean, overall, just that whole game in general, you could tell it was the end for Sellers. You know, you're losing 5-0 to someone who you should be competing for promotion with, and you sat bottom of the league with 0 points below your financial worry-stricken rivals, who everyone basically wrote off as a guaranteed relegation. You're below them 5 games in. I think there's some serious problems that you have to raise there. But yeah, I can't say I was overly surprised at the decision, nor was I surprised that it was Chris Wilder that they chose to bring back, as much as I said, it might be a bit embarrassing that you can't really function as a football club without a certain manager, as they've now brought him back again and again and again. But I think at some point they will move on. But, you know, a 2-year deal is weird to me as well, because if you just sacked him, surely you give him a to the end of the season deal. If he brings you up, great. If he doesn't, you just cut ties and get rid. But it's an intriguing situation. So I'm sure we'll see how that pans out in the next couple of weeks. But I think a lot of teams who were about to play Sheffield United will be absolutely fuming that they've now got to play Chris Wilder Sheffield United rather than playing a Ruben Sellers Sheffield United.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well with the 2-year contract. If he takes you to the Prem, he's already proven to you that he can't keep you in the Prem. So I do wonder there, and the George Hurst goal as well. I've just got to mention it because if anything has summed up Ruben Sellers' time with Sheffield United, as short as it is that goal, because it's almost like a season-long blooper reel in 20 seconds. There's 3 horrendous errors there, so quick together, which you normally wouldn't see errors like that in one game. 2 of them are from the keeper as well, because the defender's touch is awful to allow the George Hurst through. The keeper coming out of his line hasn't been strong enough to deny him. And then when he's got back to his line, he's been beaten from an angle where he absolutely should not have been beaten. And to make matters worse, it's gone straight through his legs as well.
Yeah, I mean, I did see. I ended up on like an American stream the other day for the football, and I did hear one of the CBS commentators say something like Tanganga was defending like someone out of Looney Tunes, which I did find quite funny. But yeah, no, it was just a bad game, and there's so much talent in that Sheffield United team. It's undeniable. We've already seen it, and I think with Wilder, they should be back to the Sheffield United that we sort of come to expect from a Championship season as a team in the top 6. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a drastic upturn in form in the next couple of weeks. Next up, we will go to Oxford versus Leicester. We were going to talk about the derby games as well, by the way, if anyone's wondering if you're a Charlton, Millwall, Southampton, Pompey fan. But they're both really boring, so we've sort of gone to a different direction, gone to a bit more action-packed games than them ones. So we've gone to Oxford, Leicester, and Chris, you pointed this out to me just before we started recording, but when you actually check the statistics of this match, you wouldn't believe it because Oxford actually probably deserve to win this game.
I wouldn't go they deserve to win the game. I was surprised to see Oxford ahead in the stats the way they were, but at the same time, they've had 19 shots on goal and 2 of them have been on target. And one of their goals was an own goal as well, which it begs the question, where on earth were they shooting from? Like, you wouldn't expect a team like Oxford to be pulling nearly 20 shots off against Leicester this season. I know none of us really had much faith in Leicester to be going back up this season with circumstances. But an Oxford team which don't seem to threaten much in attack, getting 19 shots off on goal is such a surreal stat to me.
I mean, yeah, as I said, Leicester sort of they've grown on me a bit after the first couple of dodgy games. They look better, but then they come to this game and all of a sudden it's sort of back to how they started the year. Yeah, you did say it was a Samari own goal, but also Lancashire's goal for Oxford had 0.94 expected goals. So I didn't actually see the highlights, but I'm just going to assume that was an open goal from about 3 yards out because there's no way you accumulate that sort of stat without it being ridiculously easy to score. Yeah, I mean, also there was a red card in this game, I believe, for Aaron Ramsey early on, so that probably impacts it as well. 24th minute red card is going to put you on the back foot for most of the game, which obviously then begs the question of Oxford should probably have put this game to bed with that many shots. To only have 2 on target is bad. It's just bad forward play. I think that's what it boils down to. But quality will tend to always prevail, and even with 10 men, it looks like Leicester, got a point out of this game through just pure quality on the pitch. Yeah, I mean, Pereira getting the equaliser in about the 50th minute, and Oxford just couldn't seem to find the back of the net overall. But Oxford are a weird team to me because they haven't actually won a game this season, but I don't think they've been particularly bad in any of them. You said there's a 1-0 loss to Brum. They got back-to-back draws at Coventry and home to Coventry and Leicester, which, again, I don't really think either of them are bad results for a team like Oxford at all, comparing the level of Coventry and Leicester. So, yeah, overall, I think that there's a team there, and I think it's slowly coming together for Oxford, but they need to start picking up points. Hopefully, with a bit of an easier run of games, hopefully for them coming up, they should be able to pick up a few more points than what they have been so far.
And I know we spoke about it at the start of the season, just before their Portsmouth game, when I'd been to their round for their conference, and we were taken aback a bit by how ambitious they seemed to be under Gary Rowett, with Elliot Moore saying that they were aiming for the top half of the table, which fair play to the ambition, but it's not there for this side, and I don't see it. I think the one concern you could have is that they've invested so much in their attack over the summer, and they brought in a quality player like Will Lancashire, and they're still struggling to hit the ball on target in terms of 19-2 on target. So there's a lot of concern there about their recruitment this summer for me.
Yeah, I mean, I like some of the players they brought in, but as you said, it's just the level of this division. It's getting tougher and tougher every year, and you have to be able to keep up. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind. And I think it doesn't help that the teams that have come up are also very, very good compared to normal years. Birmingham were going to be upside competing for the playoffs. You got Wrexham, who, albeit maybe struggling a bit at the minute, which we'll get onto later, but still an ambitious team spending a lot of money, and then Charlton, who are a really solid unit and have already proven to be really difficult to beat in the early stages of the season. So yeah, for me, it's a weird team, Oxford, but Leicester, I think there is a lot of talent there, and I wouldn't be too concerned with a 2-2 draw away after getting a very early red card. But they said these are sort of results they need to start picking up now, because if they want to win the league or whatever I assume that is their ambition, is to win the division, because that's what they did last time they were here. They're going to have to pick up some of these results, and quick, to sort of gain back the ground they lost earlier in the season. Next up, Sheffield Wednesday versus Bristol City, and it's another bad day to be a Sheffield Wednesday fan. A 3-0 loss at home at Hillsborough, thanks to an own goal from Harry Amas, and then Emma Rees and Mehmeti with the other 2 goals. And yeah, I said it a couple of weeks ago. Me and Chris sort of went through this before we started recording, but I did say when we played them at Hillsborough, I'd be very surprised to see them win a game at all this season with how bad they were against us. And we had a quick look at their fixture list, and Chris I think you said somewhere in about November time with Oxford. Personally, I've gone through the fixtures, and I genuinely don't see a win till January at the earliest, and that's against Portsmouth. I know they're playing them in the next league game, but going to Fratton Park and hosting Portsmouth is a very, very different ball game, as most teams in this division know. So I genuinely don't see them winning a game till January. Again, that won't happen. They will obviously win a game, but if you're going off pure on paper stats alone, I can't see this team winning any of the games they got coming up.
Yeah, I think the thing is with a game like Oxford United is, as we've just discussed about them as well, I've said they're going to win, and I can just absolutely see it playing out to a bore 0-0 now I've said it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. There's just no goals in the Sheffield Wednesday team at all. I said I've never seen Swansea so comfortable on an away day in my entire life. And I've seen us lose plenty of away games, and we were never in any danger of losing that one. But yeah, there's just so much lack of quality in Sheffield Wednesday, and not to their own fault. They haven't been able to sign basically anyone, bar like the very few additions they managed to get in when the restrictions were a bit all over the place. But I just don't see much doing with that Sheffield Wednesday team. I will say about Bristol City, another very good result for them. They've started the season really, really well. Bit surprising to me because I was a bit unsure on Struber. It wasn't exactly impressive with Barnsley. Nothing, I'm not setting the world alight or anything like that. So it did, but also, the pedigree, I did have to try and take that into consideration. But yeah, I don't know. For me, they're a very good side, right? They've already proven it now. I believe the 3rd in the league after 5 matches, only Stoke and Middlesbrough. Again, 2 teams you probably wouldn't have predicted to be in the top 3 after 5 matches this year. But yeah, Bristol City very, very good away from home. But I think the main focal point here is Sheffield Wednesday. And as I said, for me, I don't see where a win comes from for this team. I just don't see there, and there's no quality in this team at all to win games at this division, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt they're going to be in League One next season. I think the fans are pretty much aware of it. And, well, I mean, I suppose there is some doubt with the current situation, but it's hard. We've seen this so often, and we're seeing it too often in football now. And it just goes to show that something needs to change. And I don't know why it's going unanswered by the EFL for so long as well.
I mean, we've seen it a lot with a lot of teams. We saw it with Reading, were basically on the brink of going bust before they were just pulled out of it. At the depth, we've already lost teams like Bury and Macclesfield over the years. to financial trouble. We nearly lost Morecambe a few months ago as well. They were luckily saved at the last minute as well. So, yeah, I don't understand how he's still allowed to own the football club. Again, you ask how he was even allowed to own a football club in the first place, because there are supposed to be checks involved, but we see it so many times, even Derby in recent years as well, where bad people and bad owners get charge of these football clubs. And you can rip apart a whole community by killing these football clubs, and especially a club like Sheffield Wednesday. It's a massive football club. This is not a club that should be accustomed to playing in League One or the back end of the Championship. This is a club that should be ambitious and aiming for higher up the league. So, and they're playing, it's an iconic football ground as well. So, there's so much there at Sheffield Wednesday that you just can't let a club like that just disappear off the face of the earth because of the greed of one man who has evidently not much care for the club at all, taking away what is hundreds of thousands of people's club and their team or whatever. So, yeah, for me, it is a baffling situation, and I really hope they do get a solution soon, whatever that may be. I know there's been talks about the sale, and I can't imagine Chanzeri's all too keen to keep hold of the club because it's just losing him money at this point. But it'll be intriguing to see what happens with their financial situation in the next sort of months, really, you'd hope, or even weeks, that they can get this solved.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be fixed. And the fans are just boycotting the club at this point. I don't think there's any in attendance for the Grimsby game from what I've seen tomorrow, is there?
I have no idea.
I know I've seen things on social media about like complete boycotts by the fans just so that they're not lining his pockets. And that is exactly what fans need to do to make a change. But at the same time, it's not on the fans to make the change here.
It's also difficult because, as much as you would love to do the right thing in a way and boycott, it is your club at the end of the day, and you do want to go to the football on a Saturday, because I know it's a massive part of a lot of people, including mine, a massive part of people's lives, going to the football on a Saturday and watching your team. So it's hard to leave that even temporarily, because as much as you may want to, and you might need to at some time, you also shouldn't have to. It's ridiculous that even has to be a thing that you should have to miss out on what is probably most people's favourite part of the week, where they know or they wait all week to go to the football on a Saturday. The fact people have to give that up just to prove a point or get someone out of a club who doesn't even care about it is baffling to me. But as I said, we hope Sheffield Wednesday will resolve their situation fairly soon, because there is big concerns there. But we will move on, and unfortunately, we're going to move on to Swansea City versus Hull City. A 2-2 draw in Swansea after a late John Egan equaliser. And yeah, as the resident Swansea fan, I said we should probably bring this up. It also was one of the more interesting games of the week, but for me, I just cannot believe we've drawn this game. I'm not saying we didn't deserve to, because we absolutely did by the full-time whistle, because yet again, we've seen it where we have had a lead and we are far too passive with said lead, and we just let the pressure pile on and pile on and pile on, and then we get punished in the last kick of the game. I did say I think the refereeing was atrocious in this game. I don't understand how we were even playing until 97 minutes, but not saying Hull didn't deserve their equaliser, because it had been coming for a good half an hour in that game, 100%. Ollie McBurney getting a goal at Swansea was basically guaranteed. I think everyone knew that was going to happen. I was happy with some parts of our performance, especially like Zambo Potnik getting another goal for Swansea, sort of giving very good competition to our new signing Adam Eder, who did also look impressive when he came off the bench. But overall, for us, I think it's just another game where we've got let 2 points slip away for absolutely no reason, because if we just kept the pressure on Hull, I don't think we would even have come close to drawing that game in any shape or form.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, you've controlled most of the ball in that game as well. They're not a team that are gonna just go at you, sort of thing. I've seen stuff from your manager as well, bemoaning the referee and that sort of thing. 7 minutes, sort of. It's almost VAR levels, Premier League added time levels. So that is a bit odd as well. But I think your whereabouts where I put you. I said you'd be in the playoffs this season. Your thereabouts. I think part of that might be how upside down the table's looking right now. There's a lot of teams who aren't, as Sheffield United have proven, there's a lot of teams who aren't where you'd expect them to be this season. So I think a lot of that is contributing, but I think you will be one of the teams in the top 6 at the end of the season. You won't be automatics, but I think you'll be in the playoffs this time around.
Yeah, I honestly am not sure. I don't see it with how we play at the minute because there's big concerns with our manager, and I think you have to put it in perspective. We are 7th after 5 games, and anyone would have taken that pre-season if you'd said it. But then you have to talk in the context of the games that we've actually dropped points in. I think Borough opening day was really bad, and as much as they've been great, they were not good on that first day of the season, and we were very, very silly to let that game slip away because we should have at least got a point out of that, if not more, based off how we played the weeks after that. But I just think we lack that. I think chances created, or like big chances in the league, we are actually last at the minute. We've only created 4 big chances in our first 5 games, which is definitely a concerning stat. We're also very low down in the league for expected goals. I don't know if we're bottom as well on that, but I think we're very close to being bottom as well. So I think it's just, I said, we're scoring goals. Vipotnik's doing really well. Ronaldo's had a great start to the season as well, which is good because they both needed it, because I think their sort of careers at the club depended on them starting well this year, and they have done, so fair play to them. I said the signings are really good. I really like Eder. He was good in the first game, albeit was in a bit of a weird role for the last half an hour, but I think he'll come good. I think Benson from Burnley can be one of the best players in this division when he's on it. We just got to make sure he's fit. And yeah, there's so much talent in this squad. I just really hope that it's not wasted by a manager who maybe potentially slightly out of his depth. I don't want to write him off because we've started okay. I can't complain too much, but I just don't see us being a playoff team with him in charge.
Yeah, I think your biggest mistake this weekend has been dropping back so much the later the game went on. And that's, like I said, they're not going to go at you, but if you're dropping back, they're going to see the chance to go at you. And that's, where the smash and grabs come from right at the death. So I think a team like Hull, it's absolutely a waste. I think you should be taking 3 points there, no doubt. So that is... But there's always a blemish on a team's record every season. There's always that game that a team looks at and thinks, we should have got 3 points there. We shouldn't have dropped points there. And if a manager's worth his salt, then he's going to look at that. This will be the only game you're looking at this season like that.
Yeah, it is, as I said, it's a weird one. I don't think Hull were awful, but they just weren't very good, and we made them look way better than they actually are, I think. Sorry to Ollie, who is also a co-host on the podcast, who will probably not agree with me there. And I'm sure we'll speak about it on Thursday at some point. But yeah, I don't know. I just think there's a lot of talent in this team. I think it's probably the most talented Swansea side I've seen since we've been relegated. And we would be a fool to waste it by being so passive in games where we could just carry on dominating for the last half an hour, but we choose to sit back and basically just pray that they don't score, and they will always score. If Hull can do it, there are plenty of better teams in this league who will do it and do it again and really punish you. We've got Birmingham next week as well, so that's going to be and Forest on Wednesday. So that's 2 huge tests of our ability, I think, for the coming weeks, playing against teams like that, even if it's Forest B team, because that's, it's still very, very good depth in that Forest side. So I'll be intrigued. But yeah, I said Hull, yeah, just there's talent there. I think, I think Ryan Giles is really, really good, and he was very impressive on the sort of attacking side of the ball. And McBurney, he is the poacher guy who will score you goals, and he's doing very well. But yeah, for us, I think there just needs to be a change in attitude and how we conduct ourselves in games that we're ahead in, because there's so many times that we just keep doing this, and you got to wonder how many times have we got to do it before something changes.
Yeah, definitely.
Next up, I believe we have got Stoke City versus Birmingham, and this was probably the biggest shock of the weekend. Although, if you look at the league table, it shouldn't be that big of a shock, but obviously we know how good Birmingham can be. Stoke 1, Birmingham 0. A big win for Stoke at home against what is a very, very highly sort of touted Birmingham side to be at the top end of the table, 100%. Stoke now sits second, just a point behind the league leaders Middlesbrough after 5 matches. And I mean, overall, you have to say that is a very, very impressive result for the Potters.
Yeah, I actually backed them for a playoff run last season, and they had the season they had. But we spoke about them in our season preview and how much money they have behind them that can go into the team. And I think some of the players they've got are, again, like many in this division, they have players above this level. Bosun Law at the weekend was outstanding for them.
Yeah,
I
the
think
natural on.
I think Birmingham have started the way you'd expect them to have started life in the Championship. I don't think. I know they've only been gone for one season, but it's pretty much a whole new squad almost compared to what they did have. It's a whole new lease on life in the second division as well for them. You know, they didn't really ever expect to be pushing for promotion again before this new ownership. So I don't think they were going to adjust straight away to the Championship. And they're sitting in the top half. They're not after 5 games. It's been a bit of a hit and miss start, but I still back them to be another team I back to be in the playoffs at the end of the season. So I don't see most of the teams up there staying up there. I'd absolutely love Stoke to be one of those teams that stay up there, but they'd probably be my first choice to slip out of there as well at the same time. If not, then West Brom.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talent in this Stoke side, right? And I said it at the start of the season, we've seen it so many times where there's loads of talent, but they never have the manager to make it click. But I did say as well, if there's anyone who is going to do it, Mark Robbins would be that guy. And it looks like he is finally finding the rhythm for Stoke to play into. I think Aaron Cresswell is going under the radar for how good of a signing he is and how it is going to be for Stoke because he's been really, really impressive. Another assist in this game as well. You know, I really, really like him. I think Mabama's been great. Sorba Thomas has been much, much better than what I expected him to be. I wasn't too impressed at the signing at the time, but you know, he's come into this Stoke team and he's really, really shone, you know, been brilliant. As far as Birmingham go, I think it's the growing pains of becoming a championship side again. You know, there's plenty of talent in this team. I do have concerns with Stansfield. I said it the whole time he's been there. I don't think he will ever justify the price tag they paid for him. You know, I said they can afford to spend it, so it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. They're not worried about money, irrespective of how much he cost. But I think they could have done a lot more with the money they spent on him to improve the squad overall because I think there's better strikers in this division who would cost you not even a quarter of what Stansfield cost. So I think Mabama, for example, was a better striker in this game and he's on loan. So sort of speaks volumes about the level of this division, how, you know, it's going to take a lot for Birmingham to step up into this division. But I think they'll get there. They'll be fine. There's so much talent in this team, as I said. I don't think it's as good as they think or people thought before the season started. I did say I can see a world where they struggle a bit, but I think give it a bit more time and they'll be absolutely fine. But yeah, I don't know. I just think there's areas to improve in this Birmingham side as much as their fans may not think so.
I did back them for an automatic promotion spot at the start of the season. I'm not really going to go back on that because I do think we're going to have a closer automatic promotion race this season than we've had in recent years. And a lot of that has been the quality of the teams dropping down for the Premier League. I don't think there's a massive gulf in quality between the teams who drop down now. And obviously, those teams who did drop down in recent years also made big sales after dropping down to the Championship. So I think there's two factors there that aren't gonna be in play this summer, that haven't been in play over the summer, that just lead to a closer race this season.
Yeah, 100%. I can definitely see it being a lot closer than we tend to. You know, when you have a few teams that run away with it, but at this rate, I can't see anyone being miles ahead come, you know, sort of April, May time. I think it'll be close, but we will soon find out. Finally, we have Wrexham QPR, and it's not so much the result because I think a lot of people expected it to happen, but more so the future of Phil Parkinson. We apparently have seen that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney have had talks with Parkinson over his future after another loss, this time at the racecourse as well. A 3-1 loss at home with a team that has the highest net spend in the league by about £20 million. I think Swansea are second with about 14, and Wrexham sits up on a £32 million net spend this year. This is not a team who can afford to and want to be battling where they are with how much they're spending.
Yeah, another team who dominated most of the stats as well, had most of the ball, 21 shots on goal as well, which I've just noticed. So we knew this was coming for Wrexham. We knew the Championship was going to shock them. We said it for years that they'd probably do what they did in League Two. Didn't look that comfortable in League Two. Obviously weren't really that comfortable in League One in the grand scheme of things. But we knew the Championship was going to shock them. And I think all of us backed them to be down in the bottom half of the table, did we not, in our season
I was
preview?
the only one who didn't, but I put them on 12 because I think when they do sack Parkinson, there's a lot of talent in the team and they'll be fine.
I think Phil Parkinson was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I don't really think he's a Championship manager. I think the start of the season's proven it. I don't think with the amount of money that Wrexham have put in, they're going to have the patience to be waiting until January to see him out. I don't think he'll be there by Christmas. The issue you have then is who comes in to replace him. Because you either make one mistake in you appoint Ruben Sellers, who is the only manager I can think of available right now that would drop to the Championship, or Wrexham do the biggest Wrexham thing, which is absolutely throw money at a big name and go for the only person who's been at a top level managing is Solskjaer, who's available right now. It's the only person I could see drop into the Championship, and the only way I could see it happening is Wrexham chuck a payday at him.
I'd be intrigued to see who they would go for. I mean, there's plenty of managers out there. I'd probably go down the route of a younger, sort of, ambitious manager than going with someone a bit older. I think it makes way more sense to go with someone. I'm trying to think of like an example, but just like a young, exciting manager, like a Ryan Mason, for example. Someone you can really build a project with, because I think this season was always about consolidation for Wrexham. I don't think they think they're going to be pushing for the playoffs as much as they want to, and they're spending like they would. But there's so much talent in this team. I can't say it enough. I mean, Callum Doyle is one of the better defenders in this division in general. Lewis O'Brien is fantastic in midfield. I think Kiefer Moore is still a great player as much as he struggles. I think at this level, he's still a very half-decent goal scorer. There's so much money spent in this Wrexham team. And I know they're missing a few players. Obviously, Windass is injured, who is one of their better players, which doesn't help. Trying to think. Obviously, Broadhead as well is coming into this team at some point. He's very, very talented at this level. Spent a lot of money on him. Ben Sheaf is a great midfielder. Has proven it for many, many years at Coventry. So yeah, I mean, there's just so Kabore on loan from City as well. He's a fantastic footballer, especially at the Championship level. So there's so much talent in this Wrexham team, and it would be criminal to see it wasted by Phil Parkinson, who I did say would be gone very quickly, because I just can't see a world where they keep him. As much as he's done a lot for the club, got them up, 3 divisions in a row. I just think there has to be a point where the nostalgia wears off and you have to look at the situation you're in, and you have a very talented team with a not so talented manager, and you need to go pair your team with a manager who fits the aspirations of the club and will get you, wherever you aspire to be this season, whether that's consolidation in the middle of the table, maybe on the bracket of the playoffs. I think that's where they probably expected and want to be, is, sort of in that sort of, I'll call it the Millwall range. They're just outside the playoffs, but still had a very good year. So I think it'll be intriguing to see what direction they go with Parkinson, especially if they lose the next couple of games as well.
Yeah, I just like going back to your point of the young manager thing. I don't see them having the patience with the spend either, which is why I throw a name like Ollie out there. Not saying it would ever happen, but I could just see it being something that happened just because they wouldn't have the patience, and we know they throw the checkbook out there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of I just think, as much as I said, they won't have the patience. I also kind of disagree because they've had a lot of patience with Parkinson when they haven't been as good as they probably should have been at the levels below. I think especially last season, it sort of got brought up that they weren't as good as people thought they'd be at times, and I think as I think Elliot said it as well, he thinks that like Charlton were a better side last year, despite obviously what happened with the league table. There was a lot of good teams in, and I think the quality of the team was the reason they were promoted more so than the manager's impact. But I think they will have the patience because I think this year was always going to be consolidation for Wrexham because they know they aren't just going to fly up the league and be straight in the Prem in 4 years and done. I think there's a massive opportunity here for a talented young manager to come in and to make this team very, very good. It'll just be intriguing to see who they actually try and employ. If Parkinson is even sacked, it's obviously all hypothetical. They might decide to keep him, which I think would be the wrong decision.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well was that they had the excuse of Birmingham last year to sort of get away with it. And I know we're saying teams are better than them and that sort of thing, but I just think Parkinson had some leniency with what Birmingham were last season.
Yeah, I agree. I will say one name I just thought of is Gary O'Neill would be an interesting candidate for that job. He's just coming off of I really don't think he's as bad as people make him out to be as a manager. And I think that could be, I think he's only 42, 43. So that would be an intriguing show. But I just think, they need to find someone with the ambitions to take this team to the Premier League because ultimately that is where they aim to and will probably end up at some point in time with how much they spend because there has to be a time where you just keep building and building and building and eventually that team will be good enough to compete for promotion. But right now they just need to find the guy who they can build a process with and consolidate in this division to then push on next year to be higher up the league.
Just coming off the top of my head of Championship managers sacked recently, Danny Roll could absolutely be a man to take them to the Premier League. Obviously, not saying any of these would never happen, but Danny Roll was someone who, had the situation not been what it was at Sheffield Wednesday, probably could have led them to the top half and a surprise battler for it. If he wasn't in that situation, he was certainly in my top half of managers. He'd probably been in my top 5 managers in the Championship.
I think he was in both mine and Elliot's as well at the start of the season. But so it'll be intriguing to see what happens. But that is our sort of featured games for the week, if you will. We will now do a little quick run through of all the other results for this weekend's of action. So we'll start off with Charlton Millwall, a 1-1 draw at the Valley after a late goal from Bangura Williams was the difference to bring Millwall level and keep what I believe is quite a long streak of not losing to Charlton alive. I think Charlton were pretty dominant in this game, but struggled towards the end. I think it was a very, very silly red card from Kane Ramsey, and I believe Nathan Jones made it clear that he agreed with that statement in the press conference after the game. I believe he grilled Ramsey pretty badly, which I can't say is too unjust, especially probably shouldn't throw players under the bus. He has cost them 2 points there. But yeah, for me, just a pretty standard, feisty derby that ends in a draw, which tends to be the case with these sort of games.
Yeah, I think I'd backed Millwall to snatch a win here, but looking at the table, I didn't actually realise Charlton had dropped that low because I'd been impressed by the way they'd started the season, but I didn't actually realise they'd only won 1 game. But I think that goes to show how performances don't always impact your results, I suppose.
Yeah, that was actually the one of 2 predictions I got spot on this week was that game being 1-1. Next up, Preston Middlesbrough, 2-2 draw at Deepdale, thanks to, I believe it's Jordan Story getting an 88th minute goal, but then cancelled out by Hansen in the 92nd minute for Middlesbrough. Preston have impressed me so far. I think they're a lot better than I expected. Obviously, Borough remained top of the league despite the draw because of how the results went below them and obviously having a bit of a gap after going perfect to begin the season. But overall, 2 pretty solid teams that end up in a draw, which again, probably not the most unexpected result of the week.
That's going to end up being my one poor take of the season, that I've put Preston to be relegated at the start of this season.
That was low as well, yeah.
They currently sit 8th. But I mean, I also put Portsmouth down there in the bottom half and then ninth. But this, if we said it before, the table's so upside down at the moment.
Yeah, I think with Preston as well. I did say there was potential with Heckingbottom to be better than what a lot of people had made him out to be. And he is proving me right so far. And we'll see if they can maintain that further down the line. Coventry won, Norwich won. Pretty bog standard draw between two very good teams, but it was the late show for Coventry with Hadji Wright in the 96th minute stealing them a point away from Norwich after Kvisgaard's goal early in the first half. I think it surprised me in a way because I think we all predicted Coventry to win. I wasn't too surprised at a draw because I do think Norwich are a very good side and they're just slowly sort of progressing into what they aim to be this year, which is going to be a very, very solid team. But yeah, had you wrote last minute, I think Coventry, that was the biggest surprise for me was Coventry being behind until the 96th minute, really.
Yeah, and Norwich are one of those up and down teams this season. I think I put them in the bottom half as well, but they've already picked up 2 wins, which is better than no one in the bottom half has picked up more than 1 win, obviously. But I don't know how long Norwich can keep up form like that. I'm a bit surprised they could hold Coventry to a draw. I mean, Coventry, Middlesbrough, and Bristol, the only teams left to be beaten in the division as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was high on Norwich to begin with. I had them being top 6 in my preseason predictions. I really like Liam Manning, and I think there's so much talent in this Norwich team, especially now they've kept Sargent as well. I think that's really, really interesting to see he's actually managed to keep hold of him. But I'm not too surprised at them being in a game with Coventry. I just didn't think Coventry would struggle as much as they did for 95 minutes of this match. But yeah, I think Norwich will be fine. They're the 10th, Coventry 7th, so both sort of just, having a good start to the year and then they can look to push on. But overall, a pretty even game between two very good sides, in my opinion. Watford defeated 1-0 at Vicarage Road against Blackburn Rovers. With Morishita with the goal in the 47th minute to end that one. Watford is a very interesting situation because, again, another team with a lot of talent, which you seem to say every year, but again, they can't seem to find their footing in the Championship.
No, and you always have the Italian link at Watford as well, which I don't know how well it goes for them anymore, sort of thing. Blackburn are exactly the same, though. You just don't know what version of Blackburn's going to show up.
It's intriguing because I said with Blackburn, they have lost half their squad, albeit due to mostly off the field issues with ownership and issues with the director of football. Just there having there's issues there as well, apparently. But they lost half their squad and they're still picking up results. This is a good away win against a very talented side. I said I like so many of these players in the Watford side, but they can just never seem to click together and make it work. I think also having Iran Kundarik off the bench doesn't help because he's probably been their best player so far this year and will probably continue to be moving forward. But overall, it was just a poor day for Watford and another result where you sort of begs the question of, is Pezzolano the right man to take them forward? Because we know Watford are notorious for not giving managers a lot of time. And I think if this squad continues to struggle, he might be on the hot seat as much as someone like Phil Parkinson will be, purely because of the impatient nature of Watford's owners. West Brom 0, Derby 1. Another maybe shot result. I don't think many people saw this coming. The Rams get an 84th minute winner thanks to Andy Weimann. Ryan Mason's West Brom struggling. I think it was a good performance from Zetterstrom in goal from Derby, but overall, Derby now finally getting their players back from injuries. They're sort of looking more like the team a lot of people expected them to be before the season with John Eustace in charge.
Yeah, Carlton Morris as well. It's been a surprise signing for them, Derby. And I don't think any of us have them to be relegated this season.
Derby.
We had them down there.
I actually can't remember where I put Derby.
I know. We actually criticised the signing of Carlton Morris at the start of the season.
Yeah, I was intrigued. I think I wasn't sold on it, but Yeah, I think Brereton Diaz has been pretty. He was not very good apparently for Derby in this game, but it's like they still got the win, so I don't suppose they'll care.
No, I think again points are vital down there. It's the first win of the season, so. And you saw a lot of West Brom fans before the game. I don't know if you noticed it, but I did notice it on social media. A lot of West Brom fans saying that they can just never seem to beat Derby.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess it range true because it's another defeat at home as well, which you don't want to see for if you're a West Brom fan, you want to be picking up as many points at home as you can, and get to Derby side that started really poorly. It's probably not the most ideal result for them, but be intriguing to see how they respond next week. Finally, the pretty much boring game of the week, which was hyped up to be, the best game of the week, was the South Coast derby between Southampton and Portsmouth, which ended in a scoreless 0-0 draw. Not many chances in this game. I believe only two big chances created in the entire game, one each for these two teams. No one really looked like scoring, in my opinion. Just a fairly even 0-0 draw against, as we said, as these derby games tend to go. They don't tend to be the most interesting games.
Southampton have been my biggest, other than Sheffield United, obviously. Southampton have been my biggest surprise because we backed them to walk this division. They were certainly I backed to walk this division, and I think it was the Wrexham game at the start of the season where we acknowledged that they had played Wrexham, but we had said that if they could play like that frequently, then this division was in serious trouble for what they'd done to Wrexham on opening day.
Yeah,
but
it's a weird situation with Southampton. I think I had them second at the start of the season. I'm pretty sure. I didn't see them struggling much. There's so much talent there's in this team. I know I say it about a lot of teams, but this team is just ridiculous. The level of player they have on the pitch every week, they should not be struggling in games. I said I'll give the benefit of the doubt in this one because derby games are notoriously don't mean anything as far as form and talent goes. It's just about who wants it, and when both teams want it, they tend to cancel each other out in these sort of games, and it ends up in a draw. But yeah, it's a big derby game that we don't see all too often. We haven't seen it for a long time. I can't remember the last time. I believe they played a cup game a couple of years ago, but apart from that, I can't remember the last time they actually faced each other in the league. But it's definitely been a while. So obviously, there's a lot of built-up tension there between two sets of fans who obviously don't like each other. It was 2019 where Southampton won 4-0 in the cup, but in the league it was actually 2012. I've just seen 2-2 draw. So these teams do tend to draw a lot, and it's been proven again in this one. But yeah, overall, just not the most interesting game at all, really. Hence why we left it to last to speak about. But that is all we have time for this week. So obviously, Elliot and Ollie will be back on Thursday for their preview of the upcoming Week 6 games. But thank you very much to Chris for joining me as always, and we will see you all next week for our Week 6 review.